at the time you're devastated. You're like, man, I worked my whole life for this. And then you look back, you're like, no, it's just another blip in your road. And I think looking back at those instances gives you perspective.
Welcome to the SGV Master Key, a show where you will hear personal stories of triumph over failures and how others successfully navigated the unique landscape that is the San Gabriel Valley. What makes us different? Well, just like you, we have chosen the San Gabriel Valley for our home or businesses or both. We believe it is the people and small businesses that make this community great, and we love to share their stories with you. We always encourage your questions and feedback, and you can find all of our contact information at sgvmasterkey.com. Here are the hosts for the show, Russell Mono and Scott Warmoth.
Welcome back to another episode of the SGV Master Key. I'm glad you're with us and spending this time to bring you another guest and highlight, their journey in the San Gabriel Valley. Today is, I guess, the first in the sense that have we had a guest that has been connected familially with another guest?
No, we haven't actually.
And I feel this. You can probably see I feel giddy because it's connected to the guest
Your
that I was.
friend.
My friend, yeah.
Yeah.
But actually, I've known this guest possibly just as long. I mean, I think he was maybe even like a toddler or very young around when I was hanging out.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
So he's younger than you.
Yes, he's younger, but there's many ways to describe him. I've been following his path, if you will, from a distance and watching because he's connected to the San Gabriel Valley for certain, but more so the fitness community, right? And so I see bits and pieces of what he's doing, and he's always, doing more and growing and just in this amazing way. So today our guest is, he's a doctor of physical therapy, but he's also a businessman, father, husband, Dr. Jason Hahn. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate you guys.
Yeah. So, I would want to describe you as this person who unleashed this kick that could I felt like if you connected that with me, I would have died. So
yeah, that was a Taekwondo kick, right?
Yes.
Right. That was my former life.
Yeah.
Well, this show is the SGV Master Key, and we talk about people in the community. So what is your connection to the San Gabriel Valley?
Well, first and foremost, I thank you for the opportunity to be here. And secondly, I grew up here. I grew up in Monterey Park, born and raised through high school, spent a lot of time out here. And when I left for college, I left for over, I think, 12 years before I came back. And now
that's a long time.
Yeah.
So where did you go?
After high school, I went to Cal Berkeley for my undergrad. And from there, moved to Colorado Springs, to St. Louis, Missouri, and then to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And then I made my way back. So,
and that was all for education?
Education, athletics. Kind of my journey took me east. I didn't make it all the way to the East Coast. But
Pittsburgh.
But I made my way back, and I'm glad to be back. So
yeah.
So for the listening audience, you can't see, but he's like a stellar physical specimen here, right?
Yeah.
But how did you get into that? Where did that start with you?
I would say it's good genes. My dad and my mom and my dad were really good athletes, both track athletes in college. Yeah, that was kind of like their MO. And then I kind of followed in their footsteps, I guess.
That's sort of interesting. Were your parents born here?
No. My father was born in a small island, Labuan, which Danny had talked about.
Yes.
And then my mom was born in Burma, but had moved right away to Hong Kong, and that's where she grew up.
So I'm sorry, I was referring more toward like the push towards athletics, that maybe is unusual with immigrant Asian cultures, right?
Right. Don't get me wrong, they stressed academics. But yeah, I think if you're gonna look at the traditional sense of some parents, like, oh, you have to be a doctor, which I ended up being, I guess. But they also allowed me the freedom to explore certain things. And then because they were such athletes, they introduced me to those kinds of things. And fortunately, my dad is a retired professor. So he always believed in not only education, but giving you the latitude to kind of explore what you want to do, what you want to be. So it kind of goes in line with my journey in athletics. It was martial arts. So quick story where I was a red belt. So you ultimately want to get to the black belt at least. And I said, Dad, I'm getting kind of bored with this thing. And he essentially said, look, you set a goal of getting a black belt. Do that first. Then you can decide where you want to go. And then looking back now, those are big lessons. Mm-hmm. You know, at the time, they're like, Dad, like, you're just being annoying
you just
here.
wanted to take off and do something. But he made you see that there was a plan that you had actually already started, and he wanted you to follow through.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So, you know, ended up doing that. And
was that in high school, junior high, what?
I believe I started Taekwondo at the age of 7.
Uh-huh.
So I got my black belt when I was 12.
Okay.
Around there.
Wow.
Yeah. So, you know, I got my black belt, and then things just kind of went from there. And then a lot of life lessons from not wanting to fulfill something, and then you fulfill it, and then you see the road that comes ahead of you. Then you can make a better decision on where you want to go.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good to have that kind of stable advice, you know.
Yeah.
And you followed it, and you learned from it. That's great. What was your life like growing up and through high school? What kinds of things were you involved in besides martial arts?
I played basketball all throughout. Like Danny, I played out with alpine basketball, starting in, I believe I was a freshman in high school. Throughout high school, I played basketball. That's all I know, Russ. I was only 2 years younger than you, but you're much buffer than me. So,
I mean, I was at Danny's house a lot, very young. So I just remember that you were there sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, life was just, I don't know. Looking back, it was pretty simple. You know, we spent time with family, and my cousin Danny, his mother and him, they lived at our house for a little while. So we got to spend a lot of time. They lived in Monterey Park as well.
Yeah.
My dad is one of 7. My mom's one of 7. So there was a lot of family around.
Right. Yeah.
A lot.
And they were mostly here in the area?
I would say at least a third of them were in the area. So I grew up with cousins that we could play with, and we call each other cousin brothers instead of cousins. So, you know, it was a good family environment, you know.
Where did you go off to college then?
I went to UC Berkeley.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that, right?
And part of that was because they had a established Taekwondo program. So it was a great experience. We had 4 national championships while I was there, and we kept the tradition of Cal Berkeley Taekwondo. And then it was good for me to grow up too, because I was away from the SGV.
Uh-huh.
You know, it part of it was when you kind of look back in time, and then we have friends here in the SGV, but in a weird way, it's kind of like its own bubble. And then fortunately enough, I was able to travel for Taekwondo to different states, to different countries. And I got to, you know, experience those cultures, and that not everyone is like how we are in Monterey Park, right? Monterey Park is like an interesting bubble. But it gave me a better appreciation for everything that's out there, and it made me more comfortable exploring new opportunities, new ideas, instead of just being like, I'm here, you know.
You're definitely the first person I ever heard going to Berkeley for Taekwondo. So you said you got your black belt at 12, but then you obviously continued. So what happened when you achieved it, and then you obviously decided to continue there?
Yeah, my Taekwondo journey was interesting, right? Like I was always very athletic. So I got my black belt. Like I said, I wanted to quit when I was a red belt. Got my black belt. Then I started to see, like, even if you look at it like a social construct, right? And like you're trying to get to a better position. And then as a black belt, I achieved a position. And from there on, like I started to have the opportunity to help others, to mentor others, or the younger students that were white through red belt they needed guidance. So that offered me the opportunity to be like, oh yeah, it's good to be here, but it's also my duty to help as well. So that was one facet of getting my black belt. The other facets were like, okay, I was athletic, but I would never want first place. So that became my next goal. I wanted a gold medal. So what comes with that? It's not just the athletics. It's not just the training. It's the mental aspect to kind of get you over that edge. So all through high school, I did Taekwondo. I played basketball. But to be good at something, you have to kind of know where to allocate your time. So for me, I used basketball as a means of cross-training for Taekwondo. So over time, I used all those skills. I was able to make the junior national team when I was, I believe, 16, 17 years old. There were things along that journey where I beat this men's national team member, gives you a little confidence. I beat this collegiate national team member, gave me a little confidence. So all those little things over time help build my confidence as an individual. So I made the junior national team while I was in high school. Then the next step was, do I want to make the men's team? And do I want to try for the Olympic team or whatnot? So I chose Berkeley to give me the best opportunity to do so. And I guess that's life, right? It's you take yourself to a place where it gives you, hopefully, choices or opportunities, but also have the mental capacity or awareness with a support system, which were my parents, to make the best decision for yourself. And that's how I ended up at Berkeley, I guess.
So how did that quest for the, say, United States Olympic team, that would have been a goal?
Yeah.
And what was that like? Did you go through different Olympic cycles, or was there just one Olympics that you were focused on? Or
my first goal was making the national team. So I made the U.S. national team at the age of 19. I was like the second youngest on the team. The Olympics were the next year in 2000. I would have never thought I even had a chance to make 2000 until I made the 99 men's team, and I had a pretty good year. So I guess people are different, right? You can have a far achieving goal. Mine were always like 1 or 2 steps ahead of me. And I think that helped ground me a bit. So when I made the 99 men's team, people started to say, hey, you might have a chance to make 2000. I was like, whatever, I'm just happy to be here. And then my father is one of them that goes, hey, if you have an opportunity, you should make the most of it if you want it. So made the men's national team. And then in early 2000, I had a silver medal at the World Cup. I was like, oh, I'm able to hang with the best in the world here. That gave me a little bit more confidence. Then I started to actually believe that I could become an Olympian. And 2000, I got third at Olympic trials. I wasn't too hard on myself. I was 20. It was, my first
do they
year.
take the top one or the top two?
Top one.
Top one.
Yeah. So 2000, I was like, okay, I have 4 more years. The next quad, 2004 is the next Olympics. Everything was geared towards there. And unfortunately, they didn't pick my division to go. There's usually 4 divisions that go to the Olympics. But for men, they only picked 2 of the 4. So they picked the division below and above me.
Oh,
and
disappointing.
Yeah. But looking like at the time when things like that happen, it's funny, right? As you grow older, you look back. And at the time, you're devastated. You're like, man, I worked my whole life for this and that. And then you look back, you're like, no, it was just another blip in your road. And I think looking back at those instances gives you perspective. And when you talk to younger athletes or you talk to just younger people that go through hard times, it's just to reassure them like, hey, I know you're living in it right now, but you're going to get through it regardless of what it is. So sport has given me a lot of perspective.
How much of your life was devoted to at that time to what you were doing? Did you have a regular life and this was a part-time quest, or were you full-time into it?
During college, So at Berkeley, for the 4 years, I was balancing academics and fighting. When I graduated from Berkeley in 2002, I decided to move to Colorado Springs to train full-time at the Olympic Training Center. So 2002 through 2005, I trained full-time.
So you lived there full-time?
Yes.
Year-round?
Yes.
And how does that get financed?
It's financed through the U.S. Olympic Committee and the governing body, so USA Taekwondo at the time.
So you were chosen, you were selected
Yes.
as someone qualified to do that, and you lived there full-time. And how many other Taekwondo participants were there at the training center?
I think our team, we had about 12 to 14 athletes. At least 10 of us were on the U.S. national team, so it was good to bring
that's
a group
quite a select group.
Yeah.
Imagine that. So how many years did you say? 3 or 4?
I was there for a little bit over 2 years. Yeah.
2 years. You were training with this select team, and there would have been all of the other world-class athletes there as well, right?
It was a cool environment. You know,
Yeah.
we had wrestlers, we had gymnasts, we had, going back, like Roland Gardner was there, or you had gymnastics at the time, like Dominique Moceanu, like those kind of names pop up.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough to be around people like that. And yeah, you got to see mentality at its finest and at its worst at times. But,
so at that time in your life, what do you think your life is going to become?
I was always forward thinking because I knew that wasn't going to be, I could not do that forever. It's not like a professional sport like basketball, which can set you up for the future. So in the back of my mind, I always knew I wanted to go into some type of medical profession. Even while I was at Berkeley, physical therapy had kind of popped into my head just based on the injuries that I had and the experiences with certain physical therapists working with me. So that was in the back of my head, even while I was in Colorado Springs. After I did not make the Olympic team, I was at like a weird crossroads. I was like, okay, and I was like, do I fight another year? Do I just hang out and just be 24, 25 years old and not do anything? And then some of my friends convinced me, hey, just fight one more year just for fun. At the same time, I had a friend that went to Washington University, which I ended up going to.
In St. Louis? Okay, that's how you were in St. Louis?
He also did Taekwondo, and like I grew up with him, and he introduced me to their school, their curriculum, their program. It was very movement based, which kind of coincides with my journey with fitness, right? I look at things from a movement perspective, and it fit well with the direction I wanted to go. So after 2005, I retired after World Championships in 2005. And then later that year, I went to Washington University.
And that was a graduate program?
Correct.
A couple of years?
3 years.
3 years?
And here's a funny story. It's an SGV story, I guess. I got into WashU and I got into USC. Both top programs in physical therapy. At the time I was here, I told my dad, like I went to WashU, I visited WashU, I went to USC's open house, and my dad goes, what do you want to do? I was like, I want to go to WashU. He goes, why? USC's right there. And it was a weird time because he goes, oh, your friends are here and your family's here and this one. And because I had been gone for so long, I felt a weird disconnect to the SGV where like my friends, which I'm still friends with to this day, they were all doing the same thing, all hanging out at the same person's house, like the weekend kind of like the deals. Right. And it was a weird disconnect because I wasn't in it. And then even when I came back, things are normal, but not because I don't get the
You had somehow moved beyond that, right?
Yeah, and it's not necessarily good or bad. It was a weird moment where I told my dad, I was like, look, I want to go to WashU. He goes, oh, your friends are here? And I'm like, what friends? I got one of those states. And he's like, what friends? It's like, there's nothing in common right now.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, this and that. And then I actually took him to WashU with me, where he went to an extra open house with me. And he goes, okay, you can come here. And it was So there was like a weird SGV moment there. I've talked to Danny about this before where like, are you still connected with your friends? And it's communication and expectation.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not around someone all the time, you can't expect to feel that connection right away. And it was an acceptance moment talking with Danny. And now that I've made my way back to the SGV, I've been here for a few years, 8 years now, I guess. It's growing back, that love for the SGV. But when it was a weird disconnect at that juncture in time when I decided to go to St. Louis. And like I said, I experienced new things there, new people,
right. Different
ways of thinking. In a weird way, it's like it's family culture, but it's not Asian family culture.
Right. Yeah.
It was,
and that's a great campus too.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I love Washington University.
Yeah, no one knows about it here. It's the Harvard of the Midwest.
It's a great school. Yeah, it's a great school. I've been there, many times, but it is interesting how that whole, high school to college sequence takes place. And this was grad school actually, but yeah, you were just kind of in a different place.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily, it's not good or bad. It's just a path that I chose, and I wouldn't have changed it. Yeah. And then when they talk about you're like the accumulation of the 5 people you hang out most and all that kind of things, and it's true. Those experiences in different places made me stronger, more resilient.
Right.
So we fast forward now to whether it's business or whether you're dealing with certain life situations that come up.
Mm-hmm.
It's all helping you grow as a person.
Yeah.
To be strong, but at the same time be human. Have a balance of the two.
Yeah.
And
I had a moment like that when I got back from the military. Yeah, I remember distinctly, like I had been gone for maybe 2.5 years, and I went to visit some friends, and I had said the same thing in my mind. I said, they look the same and they're doing the same things. And I had definitely gone a different path at that point, but I said, what does that look like 5 years out or 10 years out?
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I know that I don't want that, but I definitely had a very similar moment to that when I came back. And now I'm back here.
Yeah, right?
Well, I think, I mean, anybody who leaves and comes back, no matter where they were, there's always that reconnection, and they can choose to reconnect as it was, or to maybe go some new path or some new way. And then there's those who don't move on at all, who have stayed, and you probably make conscious decisions to like try to avoid that kind of life. And well, you just mentioned like you're the sum of like 5 people, right? Mm-hmm. And you don't want to be one of those, maybe, I
think it's just the ability to have choices and options.
Yeah.
And then weighing out what is best for you and your family.
And you were given a lot of choices and options that many people don't have.
Right.
You maybe starting with family, they, molded you in a certain way, which was good. And then you started to do it on your own with your accomplishments.
Right.
Giving yourself options, know.
And I like how I pattern my parenting is very, analogous to or what my dad taught me,
mm-hmm.
right? Like now I'm thinking about it, like certain moments in high school, get a car.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do with it? Are you going to go party with your boys,
mm-hmm.
or are you going to be the first one at practice?
Mm-hmm.
I chose the first one at practice. So, there's, I guess, not protecting your child too much, right? Just like, teaching them good lessons, good manners, like what's right and wrong.
Yeah.
But letting them make mistakes as well.
Yeah.
So my kid's only 4.5, but
yeah.
Now that I look back at those certain things my dad said and did, like AKA Casa Arai. All my friends were in AKA. Well, you're in Ko'okua.
Yeah.
All my friends were in AKA. Who was it? Me.
Now, what are these?
They're San Gabriel Tri-High YMCA service clubs.
Oh, okay.
But for the listener and for those who don't know what that is, I would liken it to like a fraternity, but for high school. So you do services in the activity, but you also have social engagements with other clubs.
I see.
Yeah.
And all of my friends were in that club. So when you're a freshman, you try out or whatever it is. And then I'm just reminiscing now. So like at that time, all my friends were going and I was like, I want to do it too. My sister was in Aokaya, so like my dad had known what these things were, or my mom and my dad. And then he knew my aspirations. He goes, yeah, you can do that. I go, do you want to be like this top Taekwondo athlete, or do you want to be like your friends? I was like, and again, leads you to a decision. I make it my own.
Yeah.
And like,
well, that was great though. I mean, that your parents sounded like they were, just hands off, but they were good leaders, and
always there.
Guidance was great. Yeah.
Always there.
That's actually what I think is the key though, because you can be brought to those crossroads and choose a different direction. I mean, you don't have to be told that this is a choice, but you still know it's a choice. But I see that you have connection, with the people that you're supposed to be connected with. And I think now I look at troubled youth and activities where as an outsider, you may say they've made bad choices. And I look at that and I think, what does their connection at home look like? What are they missing there? Why are they going down this path, rather than looking at that individual and like saying, okay, you've made some bad choices here, which it can be true. I just have a different perspective now that I'm older and a father myself, right? So, Jason, we ask each guest to bring an item of significance with them. You've cheated and you brought 2, but that's okay. What did you bring with you?
So I brought my black belt. I think we've talked enough about Taekwondo.
No, what's its significance? Oh, I mean,
no, I think the significance was similar to what we had, spoken about, that when you set a goal, what are you going to do to reach it? And once you reach it, where are you going to go from there?
What is this on here?
So
that actually is Korean.
It's actually Korean.
Yeah.
So this was not actually the black belt I was given when I became a black belt. This was one given to me from a training partner when I was in Korea. So this is actually my training black belt. My other.
Yeah, because it doesn't say Taekwondo.
No, that's his name.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So
Scott lived in Korea.
Oh,
yeah, I can read it, but
Where did you live?
I lived in a little bit in Seoul, but mostly up in a province called Gangwon-do.
Okay.
Chuncheon is the city.
Yeah, I've been to Korea a few times just for training at the army base Sangmu and Yongin and Hanchedae were like sport universities, so big Taekwondo programs.
Oh yeah, well I mean that's where it of course originated. Because when I lived there, I remember some of the people around me, the Koreans, they had grown up with Taekwondo. That was just what they did. And, it was really fascinating when they started teaching me a little bit about it. But, I mean, I've never, studied it. But it was interesting to look at these people who grew up with it and knew it inside and out just from it being their kind of native culture,
Yeah, I think it signifies achievement. I think it signifies discipline.
Yeah.
Because in most cases, you don't get this unless you are disciplined to a certain extent.
Right.
And when people ask, like, do you want your children to do Taekwondo? I'm like, it doesn't have to be Taekwondo, but I want a martial art.
Yeah.
I want them to.
So I'm curious on 2 things. And I know you have a second object, but with the belt, once you earn a black belt, are there additional grades?
Yes.
So what are those called, and how far have you gone in that?
They call them degrees or dans.
Okay.
So I'm a 4th dan. So signifies me as a master or whatnot.
Okay.
Yeah. So you once you get your black belt, you test.
Yeah.
You keep testing to hit these levels.
Is it indicated on your belt itself?
Not this one. My other one it is.
Okay.
That's the level where you don't want to upset him.
Right. Well, that was kind of the other question. How much confidence does it give you in terms of your own self-protection? And, do you feel that you could protect yourself in any situation?
I think for the most part, yeah. It's just, I think just being aware of your surroundings and just keep up some type of physical shape so you can get out of a situation and run.
Because your first option should always be to run, right?
Yeah, diffuse the situation and get out of it,
But if need be, you wouldn't be afraid, or do you have a pretty strong feeling that you would?
I think I could hold my own.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for fights or anything like that, but it was funny whenever I played basketball with Danny, and then someone steps to me. He's like, "Oh man, I was waiting for you." I was like, "What am I gonna do?"
Oh yeah.
I hope you can send us the link so we could put it into the video portion. But do you know what I'm talking about? It was set to music, and you were warming up.
Yeah.
It looked to be maybe LA Fitness, but it was
that was with Danny when we were shooting videos in the past.
Do you have that? Can you send that?
It's on YouTube somewhere. I can
Okay,
find it. Yeah.
please do that. That's
What is the most powerful weapon on your body? Your hand, your leg, or what?
Probably my legs, because
Yeah.
Taekwondo is like 90% kicking. So
Is it?
yeah, then I can kick pretty hard, I guess.
What is the second thing you brought with you?
The second button is my brother-in-law passed away of cancer 3 years ago. So his main thing was, like, if we go back to his funeral, and passed now obviously, but he is of Persian descent, and now I'm relating everything to SGV. So you have like Chinese, or like my family's Chinese, so although like they allowed me to do the sports, they led me to these good decisions and this and that, but they weren't very lovey-dovey.
Your family
My
with
family.
you.
Yeah, they weren't, like, my family wasn't the ones that was giving hugs and kisses all the time. It was, there was I always knew my dad was there with me and always loved me, but it wasn't physical so much. So, or you didn't say it. And then I remember early on when my sister started dating Fareed, I was in college at the time, and we would talk on the phone, and she goes, "Love you, Jay." And I'm like, "Cool."
Is it
You
Jennifer?
hadn't heard it
Jen.
before.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm like, "Cool." She's like, "Say it back to me." I'm like, "No, we don't say this." And she's like, "Just say it." It was like a joke. But over time, I started to spend time with Fareed and his family, where you kissed on the cheek, a different culture,
Just more affectionate, huh?
very, very affectionate, and he brought a different side out of not only myself but my sister, my parents, and hugs and kisses, love you. It's like it's constant now. So this, like, the heart muscle pray thing is something that at his funeral, his friends had talked about his emojis, because he would emoji this stuff out to his boys, and they're like this is kind of weird. And I think and then we had all talked about it at his funeral, and at the actual burial, one of his best friend prints these out for all of us to wear. And I guess it's the message that to at least enjoy the time that you have with your family and your friends. Let them know that you appreciate them. Let them know that this life is short. So whether it's work, whether it's family, whether it's these moments, it's to cherish the moment as much as you can, and don't get so stressed out about the future. We're preparing for the future, don't get me wrong,
Right.
but don't get trapped there. It's like meditation, like in the moment and stuff like that.
So how has that helped you with your wife and your child? Do you think you're a different person than your parents were?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when this happened 3 years ago, it made us look at life a little bit differently. I work with a professional soccer team for the last 4 years, plus running the office. I actually gave my letter of resignation last week
to
the LA Football Club.
Oh, wow.
So I resigned from that pretty prestigious position.
Yeah.
And, money or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, I resigned so I can spend more time with my family. And my parents aren't getting any younger, and every day when my daughter's like, "Daddy, are you working again today? Are you working again today?"
Yeah, I don't think you'll ever regret that.
Yeah.
Now, what you've done, even though it's prestigious, but because I can look back over a longer period of time, and I definitely would say, I wish I had had better balance in my life and in that direction. I don't think you'll ever regret it.
Yeah. I've worked with many people, many of them in retirement. Never once has anybody said, "I wish I worked more." Never. But every single one says they wish they spent more time with their family. Like every single one. I want to go deeper into your decision to resign and your company, but let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
The legal process can be intimidating. You don't know where to start and you're unsure of what to expect. The attorneys and staff at the law offices of Scott Warmoth have been serving the San Gabriel Valley for over 35 years, helping people just like you navigate through the legal process and ensuring you're treated fairly. You can find them at law888.com or call 626-282-6868. That's 626-282-6868.
All right, we're back with Dr. Jason Hahn. Before the break, you had spoken about your decision to spend more time with family. I'm not sure if I spoke about that, my decision on the show, but that's a decision that I've also made to be with my family more. I want to go back to this because the whole hugging thing, right? Like you didn't experience. I believe that we're designed for a purpose, and I also believe that hugs and physical contact is necessary for the human experience. I think that if you are lacking that in a family relationship, in a friendship, in a romantic, non-sexual way, that you're missing a big part of what makes us human, right? So you take us. You have a family. You're married now. How many kids do you have?
2 kids. Mia is 4.5. Maverick is almost 2 years. Yeah, in like a week or two.
Wow. So you've made this decision to be with them more, to spend more time with them.
Yeah, my wife Kelli has been a rock. It's difficult taking care of these young kids when daddy's at work 6 to 7 days a week, 60 plus hours a week. And it was when Fareed had passed 3 years ago, I was 1 year into my season, and I told my sister, I said, I think I need to quit. And at least I can just run the business and I have more time to help her. And she has 3 children. She goes, no, you do you. We'll be okay. Like, we know you're here. And like my dad, led me to a decision. I took this road. So over the past 3 years, it had its purpose. I had a great time. I had great connections, great relationships, great experiences. But I want different experiences moving forward, with my family.
Sure. I think we sort of skipped over a big portion of your journey, Washington, and then you went to Pittsburgh, and then you opened up your business here. Is that correct?
I went to Pittsburgh. I did my residency. During that time, I was with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I was in the NFL. So I was there.
My favorite team. Thank you.
There we go.
Is it really?
NFL team. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. So at that time, we had like Troy Polamalu, Hines Ward, James Harrison. It was a cool time.
Yeah.
I got to live that Pittsburgh.
I think they beat the
Seahawks
in the Super Bowl around that time.
Yeah, when I was there, right after they beat the Cardinals.
Okay.
Yeah. And then they didn't make the playoffs, but that's a different story.
Yeah. Cower was the coach?
No, Tomlin.
Oh, he was. Okay.
Yeah. So it was a good time, good city. I decided to come back to be with family. So when I came back, weird, right? I was like, should I come back to the SGV? Do I want to live near the beach? So I came back and lived at home with my parents, but I worked in Torrance because I was like, I want to move towards the beach. This is cooler. And then a year after that, like I worked in Torrance for a year. I stayed and I bought a place in Pasadena.
So that's right.
Yeah.
Could we go back to Pittsburgh for a second?
Yeah.
Because Pittsburgh to me, and I'd like to get the point of view of somebody who's lived there, but Pittsburgh has always seemed to be, to me, one of the most beautiful places. There are certain places that you come over the hills into, you see the three rivers and what's that called? There's a
Duquesne Incline.
Yeah, the incline.
Mount Washington.
Yeah.
When you go up there, it's amazing.
I mean, do you have that feeling, or is that just sort of an experience I had when I was there? But just that view is so magnificent.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And even just like if you love sports, like if you're in Heinz Stadium and 10 below and there's terrible towels going everywhere, that is, you don't see that here in LA.
No.
No. It's a different feel where when they lose, the city is literally depressed.
Yeah.
It's a different feeling.
And you're so close to the coal mines. I mean, it's not so far out of the city that it's just coal mining, isn't it?
Old steel mills, that kind of stuff,
But all the great quarterbacks from that area as well.
Western PA.
Yeah.
Eastern and Western PA. And it was a cool culture.
Yeah, it's a nice city, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you, so you were doing residency there?
At the University of Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And then also with UPMC is the medical system there.
Uh-huh.
And that's that relationship with the Pittsburgh Steelers where I did my residency and I got to be their physical therapist as well.
Yeah.
So it was cool, really cool.
And when you say those names, those aren't just people on the team. You actually worked with them here too, right? Mm-hmm. Keith Miller, Troy.
Yeah, we've kept in touch, and like who moved out here afterwards? Like Richard when I had left Pittsburgh, Richard Mendenhall, he was with Pittsburgh, ended up with Arizona. So I would kind of work with him going back and forth to Arizona.
You were training them. Or treating
as a
them
physical therapist.
Yeah.
So
you develop a pretty important relationship, don't you?
Yeah, I think that's important. I think skills is one thing, but the ability to connect is another, right?
Yeah.
Because ultimately, if you're treating someone, you're trying to help them through an injury or whatnot. It's not just an injury itself. There's a lot of the psychological fear that goes along with, I'm kind of scared to move.
Yeah.
And if someone is asking them to do something, they're kind of hesitant. If you can build that trust, they're going to do a little bit more for you. Let's say that. Mm-hmm. So I think with any kind of like healthcare rehab relationship, I think it's super important to build that trust because most things you can't fix in one shot.
Yeah,
it takes time, and the better that you can establish that relationship, but still, also give good work, good skills, you're going to have better results.
So you came back to Pasadena, you bought a place there, and then you opened your business.
So I did. So I worked in Torrance for about a year, and then I ended up working for Cirque du Soleil. We had a show in Hollywood.
I remember that. Okay.
So I worked that show for 2 years, and then while living in Pasadena, and then the show was closing. So there was another.
Was that the show that was at the theater there?
At the Kodak.
Yeah, I saw
Hollywood
that.
and Highland.
Yeah. What show was that?
It was called Iris, or they pronounce it Iris.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in French or.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I spent 2 years with that.
Wow.
And it was a great experience because I was so used to basketball, football.
Yeah, and that was quite different.
American sports, where you take performing arts.
Yeah.
And you're not trying to win an opponent. Your opponent is yourself. because you're always striving. You think about a dancer or acrobat. Your opponent is yourself, where you're striving for perfection. You want to look perfect on stage. So getting to know these performing artists, it was like a breath of fresh air. I'm like,
yeah,
because I came from fighting, which is an individual sport. It's just you and another person.
Yeah.
If you lose, you can blame the ref, but you blame yourself.
Right.
Versus team sports, where I was like, oh, he didn't pass me the ball.
Yeah.
It's a different mentality. So to have people that, in a weird way, have a higher expectations of themselves, and seeing that work ethic and that intensity or that neurotic behavior in a way, it's good and bad, don't get me wrong, but it was like, it's different for me to see.
Well, how would you compare their strength and conditioning level to, say, a pro athlete? I mean, I would instinctively think they're at a higher level, but I could be wrong.
No, I think you're absolutely right. It's, at least within performing arts, they're very, very specialized. So like if you have a contortionist, that is what they do.
Right.
And they have a certain level of athletics, where in like soccer, I work with soccer right now, you're going to have a winger or an outside back that they run around and cut and stuff like that, but like a winger has to be better at sprints or like high top speed running, versus a center back where it has to be a little bit more shifty inside to side, where vertical speed is not as important. So they all are good in their own respects, but I think it's with any athlete or any person is to understand what their strengths are, but also don't get so entranced with it where you start to forget that they're a human. They're going to have weaknesses, and to be able to find those weaknesses, fill in the gaps, but in a good way that helps support the good things as well. So that's what I'm saying, like to have an athlete to trust you and like, hey, you got to be working on this. And most of the time, if they're a high level athlete, no, I'm good.
Yeah,
like,
right.
No, let me show you and this and that. But it's like, but most athletes are super hard headed. Like they've been successful. They've gotten away with doing things a certain way. And let's say you have an athlete that doesn't typically warm up. And then they're doing really well. And you're like, kind of, you think about yourself when you're young, you got away with certain things. And I think it's bringing color to it where like, hey, I understand. But at least when you're in a team setting, you're all like, hey, look at so-and-so. Like 3 years ago was great. Just like you, didn't warm up. I go, look at where they are now.
But at some point, it starts to
it starts to catch up with you. And then you bring real life situations to it where like, hey, how much money do you make a year? I make X. What if you don't have that anymore? What are you going to do? Like, oh, real life decisions. So I go, one, don't forget that. I go, take care of your body so you can have a contract as long as you X, Y, Z. So you can support your family. But also don't forget that there has to be a life after this as well. So I think having those real life conversations, and, they understand that you have them in your best interest. You're just not an animal that I'm trying to get on the field.
What happens to a circus performer? They can't do that forever. What do they become?
A lot of them coach. Yeah. A lot of them go on to normal lives. And like anything, whether it's a performer or a professional soccer athlete, football athlete, just being well-rounded, not taking things for granted, being an adult. Those are all things that we try to work on with everyone. Yeah. Because if you're successful as a pro athlete, I'm not saying all, but a lot are just, they're catered to.
Yeah, right.
Where like we're making the medical appointments, we're doing this for them, we're scheduling this and that. I go, what happens when you don't have us? Yeah. Are you going to be able to function? So I look at my position there as not only as a physical therapist, but also to be a big brother or a mentor to some of these guys. And then I had one of my young athletes from Ghana. I love him. I make fun of him all the time. But he comes to me and he goes, hey, Mr. Jason, if I need advice, can I come to you? was like, absolutely, whenever you want, And then we discussed his rehab and this and that, but his family back home doesn't have that much money. How many siblings do you have? What kind of life do you want to create for them? I say, okay, what is your salary here? Where do you live? I go, what kind of car do you want? What kind of car can you get away with? Do these things, and then you have X amount to send back home to get them the apartment that you want to get for your mom. So it's been my experience, I guess, as a rehab professional. It kind of takes many different forms, where I guess slowing down and appreciating, I get to make an impact in those different ways, and not getting frustrated when they don't want to do something. Yeah. I always try to take a step back. It's hard. Yeah. But, looking back, I'm able to do those things, but it's an accumulation of my parents, my surroundings, how they've kind of molded me.
Sure. Yeah. I would love to have more time to get into more client stories. I'm sure you have a lot, but we have to move on with the show. Was it the last guest? No, recently a guest came up with 3 very unique places for their SGV.
I think it was the last
guest. Was it? Okay. Yeah. So we're going to go into some of your favorite places in the San Gabriel Valley.
All right, Jason. So what would you feel are your 3 favorite or 3 good experiences or locations, places you've liked in the San Gabriel Valley or have meant something to you?
It's a good question. I had to really think on this one. The first one I came up with is Garvey Ranch Park.
Oh, that's
okay. First. There's a new one.
Yeah.
Okay, Garvey Ranch Park.
I grew up in that area in Monterey Park, and I guess just the memories of going down there with my parents, running around on the baseball field. It used to be a dam.
Garvey Ranch Park is near the City Hall, or
no? It's up in the hills,
up Orange Avenue.
Oh, okay. I don't know where that is. Okay.
Yeah. And Orange Avenue used to have orange groves.
Yeah.
That baseball field area used to be a dam. There's a little hidden basketball court back there, which we used to go down the hill.
Yeah, if you missed air ball, your ball's gone.
Yeah. Yeah, so I spent a lot of time there growing up, and whether it was playing with my dad, where a moment where he's like, I'm faster than you. I'm like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
And he kicked my butt. I was like, oh,
you
I guess
remember
you're
all those
little things like that.
Yeah, right.
That's the first one. So Garvey Ranch Park. The second one, I would say Marquette High School in Alhambra. I think high school is such an important. There's always important stages, but I think high school helped me mature a bit more. And again, it's a transition period where you not only do you mature as a person physically, I guess, but just the emotional roller coaster that comes with high school.
Yeah.
I was able to, just grow, I would say. And then the last place I would say is Pasadena, and where I lived for a while, but that's where my practice is, where it's kind of like this evolution where in the beginning as an athlete, you're very selfish. It's all about me. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to X. Yes, you have the help of other people, but you may not be showing the gratitude that now in hindsight, I'm like, I should have expressed more gratitude to the people that were helping me and maybe given back a little bit.
Yeah,
sure.
And then now as a healthcare professional, again, it starts off as you one-on-one. And then I can make an impact on you if I'm treating you, or you if I'm treating you, making a difference. Sure. But when it comes down to having a business and an establishment where you can bring like-minded individuals that are willing to, the second thing is that you're good at what you do. The first thing is that you care. So to create an environment that you can care for people. So people ask me why I have the model that I do. It was to create an environment where I would send my own family to. It's to create an environment which was like a professional sports environment where everyone there is geared towards your success. And that's what we created at HealthFit. And that's I would say that's my third place.
Yeah. So say the name again, and where are you guys located?
HealthFit Physical Therapy and Chiropractic. We're located in the East Pasadena area.
What's the address?
145 Vista Avenue, Suite 103, Pasadena, California 91107.
And what's the best way to get a hold of you guys?
Probably our website. It's HealthFit Inc. HealthFitInc.com. There's a lot of information on that website. You can see just a multitude of things that we do. Physical therapy, chiropractic, fitness. Now we even have like a hyperbaric chamber there, which
oh yes, I forgot. Remember, didn't I say I was going to go there?
How common are those?
Not very common.
In LA, are there a couple of them, or
there's a couple
more?
But it's like you're asking right now. It's like, is there one near me and this and that? Like they do exist, but I think what's lacking right now is an education of what it does.
You should try it, Scott.
And what does it do? What is its purpose?
Long story short, it gives your body the ability to heal optimally. Meaning, if you're going to look to the science of it, when you breathe in oxygen, there's 21% oxygen in the air that we have in here right now. How your body processes that oxygen, it takes it into your red blood cells, and then it delivers it to the rest of your body. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that they have chronic inflammation. They're not as healthy. They're dealing with chronic disease, which their body just does not run like a good engine. Mm-hmm. So when you combine pure oxygen plus compression, or you're in an environment that kind of simulates you being underwater, it allows that oxygen to actually enter your bloodstream, the plasma. So where it's flowing in the free-flowing liquid instead of being attached to cells, to the red blood cells. This allows better transmission to the rest of your muscles, your tissues, where at least our machine increases your oxygen concentration by 400%. So,
and there's immediate benefits?
Depends on the condition. So like my story of why we brought it on in the first place, my mother-in-law had a brain injury earlier this year. So she fell. It's a traumatic brain injury. She started to have blood and swelling in her skull, in her brain. It presented itself as headaches, and then it went over to like neurological symptoms, kind of like stroke-like symptoms. So, field of vision loss, not able to raise your hand, not walking. So at the hospital, a lot of them are more geared towards medication, but that interacted with her diabetes and all these. It was just causing a bunch of stuff that we didn't like. And then next step was drilling into her skull to let it bleed. I asked a friend of mine, he goes, hey, why don't you try hyperbarics? So we went this route. It's done amazing for her. So we decided to bring it into our office selfishly so she can use it. But it's helped so many other clients from a healing perspective.
Well, we have to end the show, but maybe if you go or if I go, we can share the experience on a different show. Right. Yeah. Do you remember very quickly, there was a young girl trapped in a well, I believe in Texas, for many days. It was like covered all over the news, and they anticipated that she would have had to amputate so much of her body, and they put her in this chamber, and she, I think, had minimal, traumatic injury.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm really excited about that. Thank you for coming on the show, Jason, and sharing your story with us and for our listening audience.
Yeah, pleasure.
Thank you.
I know I talk a lot, but
yeah. Well, that's good.
Yeah,
since it's a podcast.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for tuning in and spending this time with us. We hope you got something, and definitely go check out Jason at HealthFitInc.com, right? Yep. And then they're in Pasadena, and I went to the website, and you can see all the things that they offer there. So check them out. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Thanks for checking out another episode of the SGV Master Key. You can find the full back catalog of the SGV Master Key at sgvmasterkey.com and wherever you get your podcasts. This show was produced and edited by Russell Mono and Victoria Allers of Kind Monster Productions. Thanks again for listening or watching. We'll see you again real soon in the next episode.
Nice. mother. No, kind mother.